My name is Baldir, and today I'd like to talk to you about Elden Ring Nightreign. So Nightreign came out of the gate and completely put me and my friends in a chokehold. Was this predictable? Yes. Do I have an obsession with the Soulsborne games? Yes. Do I continue to dive more deeply and more greedily into the lore of these games, like a dwarf through the mines of Moria?
Yes!
Also, yes. Okay, so maybe I should have seen this coming. However, no shame for me, as Nightreign has offered me and fans like me the ability to experience Elden Ring in a fresh, new way with a roguelike twist. This video will not be about bosses, gameplay, or even builds, but will focus on what skins or garbs from Dark Souls 1 I would like to see incorporated into Elden Ring Nightreign. Obviously, there are a lot of characters, bosses, and NPCs from Dark Souls 1 that have cool skins that would be great to see us use through the fields of Limveld. So to help make sense of all the options from Dark Souls 1, here are a list of criteria I use to help make my selections. Firstly, I wanted to make sure that each skin fits as thematically as possible with our current nightfarers in the game. This could be based on things such as loose lore connections, combat style, or even something as simple as character design. Secondly, I wanted to make sure that I was choosing impactful and nostalgic characters. I think the devs did a great job choosing NPCs such as Yuria, Sigurd, and the Emerald Herald as choices to partake in jolly cooperation with. However, we need more of this. Thirdly, I wanted to ensure my skins work with standard Nightfarer design. A good example of this would be an Ironeye skin needing a face covering. Fourthly, my selections were aimed to boost the variety of skin options we can select in Nightreign. The reason for this is some Nightfarers suffer from a lot of repetition or similarity in their skin selections, in my opinion. And finally, I needed to keep in mind future videos. I plan to make more videos like this for other games such as Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, and Elden Ring. So I wanted to make sure that my selections in Dark Souls 1 didn't become too repetitive and similar to things I might choose in future videos. Admittedly, some Nightfarers were much harder than others to make meet all my criteria. As a small disclaimer, this video is coming out before any additional Nightfarers or additional skins from the base 6 skins that each Nightfarer have are in the game. So it goes without saying that some of these picks I've made may not work simply because they've either been added to the game or have become bosses. I'd also like to mention that any of the lore I'm going to mention here obviously isn't canon. It's more just kind of loose connections I'm making that could tie a certain Nightfarer to a certain skin. So without further ado, let's get this going. Here are the Dark Souls 1 skins we need in Nightreign. Intelligent, dexterous, and touting may be the best character skill in the game. Duchess fits the bill for a spell sword / rogue style archetype for Nightreign. Luckily for us, Dark Souls is full of choices to supplement Duchess's skin selection. Best of which, in my opinion, is personified by Lord's Blade Kirin. Kirin is a perfect fit for Duchess. Aesthetically, Kirin's Lord's Blade armor set adds a nice splash of color and vibrance to a set of skins that are a bit drab when looking at Duchess's garb options. Although not a major character, Kirin is one of the members of the Knights of Gwyn. Gwyn, in case you have anyone new to the series here, is the godlike figure, baddie, and ruler of the world in Dark Souls 1. Kirin's moniker is Lord's Blade. The Lord's Blades were assassins who were said to shift nimbly between layers of darkness, etching streaks of gold into the night air and planting visions of terror into the minds of their targets. Kirin accomplishes this terror by wielding a pair of daggers, one of which is the Gold Tracer. This dagger is very unique as far as Dark Souls weapons are concerned, as it is the only weapon to gain a new moveset when held in the offhand, which is fitting as we also get a unique set of movesets with daggers as Duchess. This, coupled with how nimbly Duchess moves on the battlefield while also having the ability to shift between layers of darkness with her ultimate art, make Kirin a perfect skin addition for Duchess mains. For our next Nightfarer, we are going to focus on Executor. With this character, there is not as clean of a parallel as Kirin has with Duchess. However, there are a few interesting options to choose from in Dark Souls 1. For me, it really came down to what character would be fun and fresh for the player base, while also thinking about skins I would like to see from other Souls games which I plan to cover in upcoming videos. Anywho, with future choices in mind, my Dark Souls pick for Executor is none other than Knight Lautrec the Embraced. Okay, trust me. I promise future choices for Executor will contain a katana-wielding edgelord. Moving past me giving Shiva of the East the cold shoulder, one thing I liked about Lautrec is he is of evil or dark intent, which is not common in our choices of skins for Elden Ring Nightreign. So apart from that, why Lautrec? The most obvious parallel Lautrec has with our Crucible Knight from the Reedlands of the East, Executor, is his armor. The Armor of Favor is a golden set of armor adorned with an ornate headpiece as well as arms on the chest piece, embracing the wearer with the love of a goddess. It is a very unique and memorable armor set, much like the Crucible Knights are in Elden Ring. In the Souls community, Lautrec is inseparable from his armor, since his actions are so jarring compared to the other NPCs we interact with in Dark Souls 1. The conceptual attachment of Lautrec to the favor armor he wears does segue nicely to Executor, as this is the Nightfarer who has been physically fused with pieces of his armor. Apart from these connections I am trying to draw between a villain and a stoic artist of brush and blade, I think this would give players the option to wear a beloved armor set from the Souls series, and Executor players a different style of armor to wear compared to the rest of his kits, while not entirely losing that Crucible Knight vibe. Bonus points, it would also be cool to become the true best boy during your ult, and have a golden crown as you pummel enemies into the ground as Executor. Alright, with 2 Nightfarers down, our next is the resident Birdman himself, Guardian. Guardian possesses the characteristics of loyalty, strength, leadership, honor, and best of all, a long pokey weapon. There's really only one character that embodies all these characteristics from Dark Souls 1, which of course is Dragonslayer Ornstein. Obviously, the first connection you can make with Guardian and Ornstein is their choice in spear-like weapons. But as stated previously, there is more than just weapon choice that connects these characters thematically. Ornstein was not only a member of the Knights of Gwyn, if you're sensing a trend here, no you're not, but was also their captain and ranking officer based on his effectiveness and leadership on the battlefield. The loyalty that Ornstein has is best displayed by his relationship with the Nameless King. In an effort to stay as surface level as possible with this, the Nameless King is actually Gwyn's son, who is banished by Gwyn himself. This banishment caused Ornstein to forsake his rank and station within Gwyn's kingdom, search endlessly for, and eventually reunite with his long-lost nameless pal. This dedication to his friends is to me a direct parallel to how Guardian feels about his new flock, made up of the other Nightfarers in Nightreign. Another connection with Guardian is to a theory that Ornstein is the dragon that the Nameless King boss rides on, known as the King of the Storm. Guardian and his old flock of Pinion Folk, or bird people, use the wind and the storms in battle and their daily lives. This can best be displayed by the Guardian's character skill to summon a whirlwind to smack enemies around. All this to say, I would love to see a Dragonslayer Ornstein skin for Guardian, as it would once again add an impactful character for players to combat the darkness of the night with. Moving on to our next Nightfarer, we'll be discussing Ironeye. When thinking about famous archers in Dark Souls 1, it is clear there are not many choices to choose from. Coming to this realization made it make more sense as to why the Nightreign devs chose Ringfinger Leonard or the Sellsword skin for Ironeye's NPC skins. The Sellsword is quite literally just the Llewellyn set from DS2, and to me does not really fit the vibe of Ironeye, although it does look pretty badass. I do think these choices were kind of head scratchers though, as in Dark Souls 1 there is a clear choice to me, Hawkeye Goff.
Oh no!
Hawkeye Goff is the largest and final member of the Knights of Gwyn that would be in Nightreign should all my wishes be fulfilled. I know this seems like a wild pick for Ironeye, but hear me out. Goff's armor, although in need of some tailoring to maintain Ironeye's slim fit, would be a welcome change and provide variety and nostalgia to Ironeye's garb selections, providing players with the option to fight as the kind giant archer in solo play, or with friends dropping in on Limbuild as a member of the Knights of Gwyn. Next up, as we continue to move through our Nightfarers, is my personal favorite, Raider. As a Raider main, this is the Nightfarer that really got me locked in on the idea for this video, which is my first video by the way. As a lifelong member of the school of Big Bonk, my mind ran wild once I saw our skin options for Raider and what I felt was needed. In Souls games, there are many characters and armor sets that could be used for this character. However, for me, there is one clear choice for this Nightfarer, and that would be Black Iron Tarkus. I'm of the belief that black armor sets are the coolest in Souls games. The Black Iron set worn by Tarkus is definitely one of my favorite sets in all of Soulsborne, and its brutish characteristics are perfect for the hard-nosed raider gameplay in Nightreign. The item descriptions of Black Iron Tarkus' armor and weapons point to how they are only usable by our big strong boy Tarkus. Who better to be the spiritual successor for this unusable armor than Raider? Please, FromSoft, I need this. Next up on our list of nightfarers is none other than our resident spellcaster, Recluse. There are definitely no shortage of characters from Dark Souls 1 that we could see as a skin imported for Recluse. The Recluse has a fair amount of variety in her skins, however, there is certainly a need, in my opinion, to be bold and provide players with some variety. Luckily, there is one character model from Dark Souls 1 that would break up the semi-monotonous skin selection for Recluse, who is also heavily magic focused. I am, of course, talking about Dark Sun Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn, with his moon affinity, is the last-born son of the deity Gwyn, who is gifted with magical abilities. To my knowledge, this is the first instance in a Souls game where a magic-based character is associated with the moon, which is a trend that has carried on all the way through Elden Ring. Gwendolyn's magical power was so strong that it was not only able to project a citywide illusion in Anor Londo in Dark Souls 1, but also was able to completely alter the environment of an entire region of Irithyll in Dark Souls 3. Recluse is very likely the most powerful DPS in Nightreign, which fits wonderfully with the son of a god who has the ability to cast and channel such powerful spells. With this power comes a susceptibility or frailty to physical damage, which the Recluse and Gwendolyn also share. Now, loreheads may be thinking to themselves, couldn't Gwendolyn also work for the Revenant skin, since a fair amount of the lore discusses how their magical ability was strengthened through their faith and not their intelligence stat? To that I say, yeah, that is a fair point. But I would remind everyone that Recluse also has an Escalian faith, as well as intelligence, making them a perfect fit for Gwendolyn. If that doesn't satiate your thoughts, just wait until you see what I recommend for our Revenant skin coming up here. While I really do like most of Revenant skins, they all suffer from being a little too similar to each other. I know she has Sister Frida as a skin, which is probably one of my favorite bosses in all of the Soulsborne games, but it is just not on par to me with Solaire, the Emerald Herald, or Artorias from the other Nightfarers. With this in mind, my pick from Dark Souls 1 for our mysterious doll Nightfarer would be Priscilla. Priscilla is a being who is half humanoid and half dragon. She was feared by the pantheon of the gods in Dark Souls 1 because of her life-stealing abilities and her body infused with occult power. Now, I'm not saying that Revenant has occult power. However, she does have a power stemming from a dark place that empowers her lifeless body to operate autonomously as a doll. So maybe there's something there. Some additional reasons to think Priscilla would be a fitting skin for Revenant are: Revenant commonly uses dragon-related incantations, and Priscilla is part dragon, as you can see from her tail. Priscilla wields a giant scythe akin to the viral Revenant memes of her running around with a giant crusher hammer. And, of course, feet.
Oh, yeah.
Typical Miyazaki. Apart from these loose lore connections, Priscilla as Revenant passes the vibe check to me, and I would love to see this garb usable in Elden Ring Nightreign. Last but certainly not least, we have John Nightreign himself, Wylder. Wylder has a very strong set of garbs, and the one I would like to see added from Dark Souls 1 would possibly make him too powerful of an aura farmer. My choice for Wylder from Dark Souls 1 is Marvelous Chester. Chester is a very interesting and unique character in the Dark Souls DLC who gives off major Bloodborne vibes. In my opinion, because of the nature of contracts, intellectual property, and the capitalist hellscape that we are living in, we will likely never get Bloodborne garbs in Nightreign. With that said, I do hold out hope with Bloodborne truthers in any way I can. Anywho, back to Chester. I think his Guy Fawkes vibes would really bring a fresh change to the garbs Wylder has available in Nightreign. It is worth mentioning, Chester does not have the proper weapon to function as Wylder, as he usually uses a crossbow, but I do think Wylder's ult has trick weapon vibes, so to me it works. At the end of the day, really, I just want a Bloodborne character in Nightreign, and I honestly think this is as close as we're going to get. So I'd really love to see Chester utilized and put into our rotation of skins for Wylder in Nightreign. Alright y'all, so these are the characters from Dark Souls 1 I'd love to see incorporated into Nightreign. As stated earlier, this is my first commentary style YouTube video. I had a blast making it, and even more fun pouring through all the characters and lore to figure out which character might work best with which Nightfarer. So, what did you think of my choices? Are there any characters you'd like to see brought into Nightreign that I didn't mention? Let me know in the comments. And if you like what you saw and you'd like to hang out on Twitch, I'm live most Wednesdays and Saturdays, playing Souls games, indie games, and RPGs, etc. So, with that said, until next time, take it easy, y'all.